After all the stars have been sewn and pressed, I'm ready to add borders. I use the measurement through the center as a guideline. Then I cut both the bottom and top border strips the same size as the center measurement. This process allows me to square up the quilt. When the center, top, and bottom are in alignment, the quilt's edges will be square. Often the top and bottom edges are larger or smaller than the center measurement. The borders then have to be eased in or out to match up to the center measurement. I'll be using this sample to better show you how to ease these border strips to your quilt top. Measurement on this side and this side should be the same, but like most quilt tops, when they're completed, these two measurements are a little bit different. I've folded this in half to show you that there's about 1/8 to 1/4 extra on this side and 1/8 to 1/4 extra on this side. On larger tops, this difference might vary up to 1 inch or more. So I've used the measurement through the center as a guideline to cut the top and bottom borders. This border strip is longer than my quilt, so it will need to be eased into the quilt top, and this piece is shorter, so the quilt top will need to be eased in to fit the bottom border. I folded each border and each edge in half, and then I folded it in half again, and then I marked those spots. I put right sides together matching these lines, and then I pinned. I also put pins on either end. This helps to distribute the extra fabric across the entire top. Depending on the amount that needs to be eased in or out, sometimes I have to fold this in half again and pin in order to make it easier to distribute this fabric throughout. But for this project here, I think this will be okay. Now, if you've watched any of my videos, you know I usually don't like to use pins, but for this process I use my fair share. And as I said, I try to distribute this fabric, so you see there's a little extra fabric there, so I might put a pin right here. So I've put a little extra on this side, and then I might add another pin here, and I might put another pin here. So this process, if you've ever worked on any sort of clothing, it's like easing a sleeve into a bodice. Sometimes people like to use basting stitches across here, but I find that it's just easy for me just to come across, kind of find a center, and continue pinning till I notice that all of this has been evenly distributed. I've finished pinning across the top, and I'm ready to take this to my sewing machine. Now I find that whatever side the excess fabric is on, so in this case the excess fabric is in the border, I like to take that and place it down against my feed dogs. And the reason why I like to do that is because the feed dogs are underneath the sewing machine and they're pulling the fabric, and they sort of naturally will redistribute this fabric as you sew through. So let me go over that again. Since this is the piece that has the excess fabric, I'll place that side down so my feed dogs can help redistribute that fabric evenly. Take my first pin out. Just take the pins out as I sew. Now I'll take this over to be pressed. And here's my quilt top and border. I'll repeat this process on this bottom border. I matched my marks, and then I put pins on each end. Now I need to work on distributing this fabric equally across this edge. This time the quilt top has the extra fabric, so I find this easiest to turn this over and pin on this side. Here's that excess fabric. Try to move it around, and I'll pin about halfway, and then between here and here, put another pin, try to distribute that fabric equally between those two spots, and the same is true here. So I like to split the extra by pinning And then split that extra again with the pin, and I'll continue all the way across in that manner. When I sew, this side with the excess fabric will go down against my feed dogs. Here's my top pressed and all squared up. Both of these edges are now the exact same size. I'll go through this process every time I add a set of borders. So let me get back to the 4-star quilt. I'll ease each border to the quilt's edge, sew, and then press. To add the next 2 inner border strips, I start this process all over again. Make sure that the selvage has been cut, measure the distance through the center of your quilt, and then cut these 2 strips. I'll ease each border to the quilt's edge, sew, and then press. I continue in this manner, cutting each set of borders based on the center's measurement. Here's my completed top. All the border seams have been pressed to the outside edge. If you decide to make this star quilt, you'll want to watch the next video in this series. I go over some of the mistakes I've made and show you how to avoid them ahead of time. Thanks for visiting LearnHowToQuilt.com. Please share our videos with your friends and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks.